Man, these presentations are all the same, but not me. I'm straight up changing the game. Curiosity, guys, my energy is steady. I'm stepping up on stage like mom spaghetti. Adapt and inspire, that's what we all about. And while I bust this rhyme, yo, hear me out.
You're listening to the AVIT Amplifier. Each week, we'll feature voices and ideas that need to be amplified in the higher education and pro-AV IT communities. This show is brought to you by higheredav.com. And now here's your host, Ryan Gray.
Well, hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in again to the AVIT Amplifier. As always, I am Ryan Gray, and I am your host. And if it is Wednesday, your feed is refreshed with new content, and today is no exception. Coming to you today with a gray matter moment, and it's a weird gray matter moment. I haven't done one in quite a while, and usually I have these sort of organized, not scripted, but definitely something that I've wanted to talk about, and usually it's something that has some emotional tie to what's going on with me. But today I want to recap an interesting project that I got into, and then show you the result of that project. And I'll tell you, for the most part, it's because people at my school keep asking me for it, and so I need to do something with it, because the result that I'm going to show you does not make sense out of context. And so I wanted to make sure if I put this out there that it had some context with it. But also, there's a whole lot of stuff about this presentation that actually has a whole lot of value to it, but in the end product, things whip by real fast. And so I wanted to take the opportunity to mention a couple things and then show you what I have. So here's the quick story. Here at Yavapai College, they've been embarking on a series of leadership presentations called the Authentic Leadership Experience with somebody named Holly LeMaster, who I will link in the show notes. And basically, she's a consultant that comes in and does workshops with groups of people. She does coaching for executives and so forth on issues of authentic leadership. And at YC, in this past semester, we did 2 cohorts of this training, which involved 2 half days a month from, I can't remember when we started, October through February, let's say. So it was a time commitment that we put into it, and there was work to do in between these two. But what was really cool is the cohort that I was involved in had other people, I don't know, I mean, levels are a weird thing to say, but it had college deans, academic leaders, our new director of facilities, and people from marketing, people from campus safety, and a good cross section of folks from across the college that I got to do this with. And essentially, you're going through these half-day workshops, talking through and doing some role play, doing some activities about things involved in leadership, the theories of leadership, activities with it. And in the end of that, the last day is a series of presentations where people get together or all the attendees of the thing prepare a presentation to talk about what they've learned, what they want to apply, what the experience was like, maybe what their model of leadership is. But there was definitely some freedom in what that the form of that presentation looked like. And so I chose to go a particular route with it, and I'll explain why I did. But before we get into it, there are a couple of concepts in here that I want to do a little bit of justice to, and to give some context to what you're going to see in it. Because as I said, out of context, there's parts of it that won't make any sense. So first, the structure of the video that I created for this follows basically the content of each of these things, and you'll see them called out: experience 1, experience 2, experience 3, experience 4, experience 5. Those represent those 2 half-day blocks as you went through those things. And the beginning of them each started with a breathing exercise. So when you see references to breathing out concern, breathing down your cortisol, box breathing and things like that. That's where those references come from. And then in the content of this, I hit a couple of things. So at the very beginning in the intro, you're going to see a reference to my Myers-Briggs type, ENFP. And I probably have talked Myers-Briggs on this show before, but it is one of those things that has worked well for me to understand me and my type, and not just what that 4-letter acronym means, but the science behind what it represents. And if anybody ever wants to dive into that, the cognitive stack research that undergirds what became sort of the 4-letter things there. ENFP, the E in there, everyone who knows it kind of knows E or I. All of them start with E or I, and that means introvert or extrovert. But in reality, what it signifies is whether your primary function of your cognitive stack is outward focused or inward focused, and it alternates from there. So those 4 letters represent a lot, but ENFP is a big deal for me, and it's been really helpful as someone who's, my primary thing is an externally focused, intuitive process, meaning always seeing opportunities, seeing the world around me, and trying to figure out what things are possible, instead of a first act being inward focused, as it can be for a lot of people. But that's what that reference is to. And if anybody ever wants to do a deep dive on Myers-Briggs types, it's good. My current claim to fame is being able to predict and guess people's Myers-Briggs. In fact, I made a prediction for our president's Myers-Briggs, and I got it right. And the other thing I like to mention, and this is when I hired managers, after I took this position, and I got to hire people. The person I hired into the management role that I moved up from is an ISTJ, or the exact opposite of me in this. And that was very much on purpose because, while that, the different ways we operate can create friction, it makes really great complementary things on that front. And then the other thing I'll mention is in the video, you will see in some of the shots and scenes, scribbling on the whiteboard in my office. Take a look in there for things that look like maybe Myers-Briggs things, and some scribbled notes, as it is something I do talk about with people a lot. And the next thing that gets referenced in here, and again, there's tons of concepts referenced, and I'll get into why that is. But we spent a fair amount at the beginning of this process on self-awareness. And one of the key concepts in self-awareness is that basically most people think they have pretty good self-awareness, and most people don't. And in fact, the research shows that people who believe they have high self-awareness have low self-awareness, and vice versa. And it makes a really challenging process to develop a true sense of yourself. And it takes a lot of vulnerability. I know that as this process started, we did a version of something that's done with like 360 reviews, where you seek input from other people around you to help form that vision of how you are perceived, to help build self-awareness. And I would encourage that for everybody. It takes trust, and it takes security. It takes psychological safety to do it, which is another thing that's mentioned in this, which I think gets basically those 2 words is the only mention of what psychological safety is. But I would challenge leaders and managers out there to work towards creating environments where people have the psychological safety that you can engage in those types of activities, give free and open feedback so that people can develop self-awareness, which I think, is really important. And really a lot of the things that follow in terms of developing leadership and attacking, who we are as people and how we relate to other people is built upon self-awareness, and something that I continually have to check myself on. Just when I think I've got a good handle on it, I find out that I don't. There's a reference to VUCA, or VUCA. It says we live in a VUCA world. Oh man, I should have written this down first. So that refers to the world being volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And I think this is a sort of thing that, we all kind of know and understand. And it feels really acute right now, though it has felt for a while, that kind of the world we live in, our work environments, our home environments, our country, and the world does seem like they're in a constant state of volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguousness that can make things difficult. But that by acknowledging that and bringing it to the forefront of our discussions, it makes it a lot easier to know that we're all in that same boat together. There was a presentation at Educause that I'd have to look back in my notes to see which one, but what I liked about it is in part of the beginning, they were talking about change, managing change. And they showed, a picture of a person, in a boat on a peaceful, quiet lake. And they said, this feels like what things used to be like. And, change meant, things were calm. And then you had rough water for a little while and you got back to that calm lake. But now things look like this. And it was just a picture of somebody doing whitewater rapids. And that the pace of uncertainty, change, and ambiguity in so much means that we're no longer trying to go from one solid status quo to another, but, having to navigate the rapids, which is okay. It's just a different way of thinking about things. It means that we have to find ways of having fun doing that, having fun navigating the rapids and going down those things. And so what do we need to build? That means we need to build the firm foundation. So if you're trying to navigate whitewater rapids in a shoddy, put together, fragile boat, it ain't going to be fun. And people won't feel good. They won't feel the excitement that can come from VUCA environments. What we have to do is build a good firm foundation, right? You need a good buoyant boat, something put together, a way of feeling secure in rough waters and rough times, so that as you're dealing with and rolling through the uncertainty of that, you and your teams are doing it from a place of confidence in the buoyancy and the stability of your particular team, your particular group. And then it can be a ride that you're having fun doing rather than something to be afraid of. I also like the thing of, if I know my boat is built buoyant enough, when those waves flip me over, I know all I got to do is tuck down and the buoyancy will flip me back up. As kind of an interesting lesson that came from that. There's a discussion in here about biases and cognitive bias. And I think we've talked about that on this show with a number of guests. And I think it's important that when it goes to self-awareness is for folks to look at objective tests of what their biases might be. One of the lines in here is that biases are implicit and sly. That is, they're underlying, they're there all the time, and they're sly as it's not easy to see and identify when they may be affecting us. So I think that's an important thing there. And not only when we think of bias, we think about how we think about other people, but also about how we think about ourselves. There's really good research on the negativity bias and the origin of humans tending towards seeing situations and anticipating the negative outcomes of them, of situations or people, and not giving the same amount of time to the possible positive outcomes or things, because that was a defense and survival mechanism for a long time as the human brain was forming, but may not serve us that well in today's modern world. So I would just encourage folks out there and
highlighting the concept of implicit bias and the study of implicit bias. That is the biases that we may carry that lay under things and are not obvious, but that may be changing how we think or how we evaluate. And then finally, there's a reference in there to something called to the words "clear as kind," and clear as kind is something that, my wife and I have talked about a ton and is a challenge for me, as someone who, for a long time was pretty conflict avoidant. It felt like, comfortability was kind. And oftentimes, you have to understand that being clear with people can be the kindest thing to do. Another way that it's said is speak the truth in love, as a way when dealing with people at work, when leading teams and being a leader, it's important to be clear. And one of the things that I've established on my team with my managers is that, I expect that they will hold me as accountable as I hold them. And that has really helped in the world of establishing communication of clear as kind, and how much trust can come out of those things that is important, that clarity, when we live in a world that is VUCA or volatile and uncertain, the places where we can build clarity can create comfort and kindness for people, even when those things are hard to look at. So, highlighting those things, which you'll see in this video, and they'll come and go in a hurry. I just wanted to point out that there are some things referenced in here that are really valuable, even though that in this video they come and go by real quickly. So here's the story. Like I said, at the end, knowing that at the end of this, we were going to have to do a presentation or get to do a presentation, and that college leadership and other people were going to be there, but that, there had been people who'd done some pretty creative things in the past. I thought, and there's a reference in the very beginning of this, and I may stick it in as the cold open of this episode to a line about, these presentations are all the same, but I'm going to choose to do something different. And I want to reference real quick, I was wrong about that, because, this day of presentations saw a wide variety. I was expecting, people to do a similar thing, have similar slides. This is what we talked about. This is what I learned. This is whatever, just what it took to complete the assignment. And what we saw were some things that were really different. We had somebody do theirs entirely as a poem, and this poem actually had different ways it could end as the audience got to choose between folders what they wanted. We had people tell their story through songs, and had a playlist that went through their history of evolution with different songs representing it. And then each attendee had a bingo card and with all the songs in a bingo sheet, and whoever got bingo first won a bottle of wine. So that was sort of cool. We had people that used no notes at all, but simply spoke extemporaneously. And some of those were very heartfelt and vulnerable sharing of who these people were. And one from a gentleman that, I didn't know very well, and by his own admission was very skeptical of this process at the beginning. And he ended up sharing some pretty deep things and associating it with some imagery of, himself in the environment that he lives in and things like that. So I will apologize to anyone who's listening that did this presentation, because my expectation of seeing a lot of things that were pretty similar did not come to pass. And it was an amazing day of people sharing of themselves that really filled my cup in a way that I wasn't expecting. But as I knew this was coming, I had to put together a little bit of a plan in advance. So I'm going to throw a shout out to Holly, as we had only done 3 of the 5 experiences by then. And so over the winter break, I decided I wanted to get a head start on it. And I asked her if she could give me a preview of what was coming in the other ones. And she was kind enough to do so that I could make something that was comprehensive all the way through. So what you're going to see here is all of the words and stuff was kind of written, recorded, the audio almost, all completed over the winter break before we came back in January. And then the videoing or the shooting was done on a couple of random days in January. And a huge shout out to my operations manager, Zach Van Oy, who helped me with that part, had a lot of vision for what this could be, storyboards and stuff. And I only wish we had the time to put together, what all that would have meant to bring all that vision to life, because it would have been awesome. And then, so with all of the audio ready, that stuff put together, the footage in, I got that done just in time to head out to ISE. And so the long haul flight back was was from Switzerland to LAX, and that was about 12 hours, and 7.5 of the 12 hours on that plane was editing of this video. And I have to say, I know there's better takes for all of these available. It's just what I had time to edit, because, I got back late Saturday and this presentation day was that following Wednesday. So there was no time to do anything else with it from there. So I'm stalling now because I'm a little self-conscious about what this is. But I will say, I got, and this will make some sense. I got some raised eyebrows when I asked for help, getting a subwoofer into the room that this presentation was going to be done in. It got moved into a room that is our board chamber, which is a brand new high-tech space and is awesome. Not well set up for anything other than speech intelligence, and is specifically pretty narrow in EQ for that purpose. So I knew it definitely needed, this wasn't going to work without a little punch and a little oomph to it. So thank you to the folks who helped me get an 18-inch subwoofer in the room for this. And without further ado, I hope some of that context makes sense. This is the intro that I gave to the people in person, to the folks in person. I basically said, we just went through this 5 experience thing, and one of the hallmarks of it was that it was very dense in content, and that there were really important things that were packed in. And I was really taken about how much quality content there was. In fact, it will take a long time afterwards to really unpack all of what it was, all what it meant, and all what it could have been. But as far as my presentation, I wanted to do something that honored how comprehensive I thought that it was. And so the presentation's supposed to be 5 minutes. So how could you possibly get through all of that information in only 5 minutes? I've never talked for only 5 minutes about anything in my life. This intro not being withstanding, as we're already at 21 minutes. So first thought was, you got to pick up the words per minute. You got to go faster. Who talks the fastest? Auctioneers. Perfect. Let's do this presentation at an auctioneer. But then I thought, that's going to get annoying, and eventually people will tune out. I don't know if people remember the old Micro Machines commercials from when we were a kid, but that guy talked really fast. Maybe I could do that to get more words per minute in. But I thought that's not going to work, but I need some answer to this question. And so then I heard that in the cohort before us, a AVP, one of our AVPs had done his presentation as a live rap song. And with that knowledge, I knew what I had to do. And then I called on Holly, who was queuing up the videos, and I said, Holly, or DJ Holly, let's drop that track on him. Dr. Nix led the charge, breaking the ice. Myers-Briggs was the focus, exploring our slice. A journey within to understand our vice. Unpacking our types was like a roll of the dice. ENFP, that's the vibe I claim. Big ideas, bold vision, I'm a spark in the flame. I'm driven by passion and I got a need to create. I'm taking the stage, I innovate my fate. Hip-hop, the medium, not the norm to expect. But connections take form when we impact direct. Man, these presentations are all the same. But not me, I'm straight up changing the game. Curiosity guides, my energy is steady. I'm stepping up on stage like mom spaghetti. Adapt and inspire, that's what we all about. And while I bust this rhyme, yo, hear me out. 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 Don't lose yourself, let the rhythm run as we tune in Holly for experience 1. Inhale the present, exhale the doubt. Find clarity within, that's what it's all about. Leaders face demands that crush and confound, but balance is found when the breath slows down. Cortisol fails, resilience arises. Stress turns to focus, watch how it surprises. Self-awareness is the foundation we build. Knowing yourself sharpens up every skill. Internal insights reveal what is real, while external views reflect how we feel. We're in a VUCA world where chaos thrives. Volatility shakes us, but vision survives. Uncertainty clouds, but understanding clears. Complexity tests us, but clarity steers. The behavioral frame, it all starts the same. Thoughts, actions, and feelings all play the same game. Interwoven, cyclic, they shape what we do. Awareness transforms how we think it through. When emotions ignite, the roosh takes control. You gotta pause, take stock, and center the soul. React or respond, how you gonna roll out. Our decisions define how we set our route. Granularity matters, our emotions have names. From Fresh Prince Charm to Snoop Dogg game. frame. With nuance and insight, there's no need to shout. I lead with intention, yeah, hear me out. Self-reflection's a practice, a journey to pick, turning blind spots to maps, and for my next trick. See confidence watered, see a drought of doubt. Be authentic in action, yo, hear me out. 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 Holly on the sequel with experience too. Your breath brings the steady and recenters. Use box breathing the rhythm. Inhale, hold, exhale. Release the stress, let the calm prevail. Biases linger, they implicit and sly. Framing decisions and distorting our why. From confirmation to the unconscious streak. Awareness disrupts what assumptions speak. Resilience holds as we write to the plot. Like Lin-Manuel, not thrown away, my shot. Self-care is the anchor. It starts with intent. 8 steps to resilience, each one well spent. Mindfulness will sharpen, compassion grows. Managing the self where awareness flows. Boundaries form where respect begins. We all different, don't wanna be twins. Leadership, evolution, yeah, the shift profound. From task to vision grow, the growth is unbound. Empower the team, let the stretch refine. Mentorship blossoms as our outcomes align. Managers take care of what we require. Leaders provide vision and work to inspire. Set tasks in motion, but bridge the roles. Make sure to do both, got a closed loop. Authenticity shines, it starts with the core. If you're straight out of Compton or the executive floor, your physical presence speaks loud without words. Your mindful presence makes sure you'll be heard. Intentional listening is a leader's art. Lean into your empathy, you get a head start. Your words, tones, and silence, each one is a route to build understanding. So hear me out. 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 Holly in the hood with experience 3. With extended exhale, we breathe and we see. Trust is the anchor, the glue of command, the foundation of connection where relationships stand. Trust extends from competence and care. It's earned in actions, not promises declared. Transparent, dependable, and willing to grow. In the flow of leadership, let integrity show. Conflict's not evil, it's growth in disguise. Fostering clarity as perspectives arise. Healthy debate sharpens insight and flow. Disagree, don't disconnect, let teamwork grow. Accountability reigns, it all starts the same. We be owning our actions, not passing the blame. Set clear expectations, be aligned and tight. Empowerment blooms when we get this right. Through clarity we thrive, no room for the haze. It's a hard knock life, but we find better ways. There's no trip, communication is sharp. Alignment builds rhythm, each voice plays a part. Intentional conversations are the stories we told. Building unity as strong as Rough Riders roll. Listen and learn, give no quarter to doubt. Leaders create comfort, so hear me out. Boundaries protect, they're not barriers to hide. Respect flows both ways where values reside. Gotta set them with intention and adapt when you must. Remember, clear is kind to build up trust. Feedback's an art, be precise and sincere. It's not just critique, it's a tool to steer. There are positive, constructive, and corrective routes, so choose your type and then hear me out. 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 Holly snaps back, sessions 4 and 5. Storming, norming, performing, our team speak the jive. The L5 dysfunction warns where we fall. Got 99 problems, but trust solves them all. Psychological safety is where boldness begins. Voices find their strength and inclusion wins. Commitment and clarity seal up the seams. Accountability makes a high-performing team. Meetings matter when they're handled with care. Purpose roles and outcomes are clear to share. Get up and warm it up with a human start. Agenda in focus, let dialogue spark. Belonging's the thread from the window to the wall. Inclusion ensures we get to hear from all. Celebrate diversity, you gotta value the whole. Belonging fuels passion and deepens the role. Recognition stokes the vibe, is more than applause. Like you're in the club, gotta celebrate the cause. If it's specific, timely, and clear in its aim, positive feedback brings flex to the game. We got Gen Z to boomers, yo dog, I gotta say. Crews from across the generations can slay. Bridge the gaps, you'll be the best in the biz. Shared understanding means you're leading with riz. In turbulent times, our leaders must steer with vision and calm, yeeting out the fear. Adaptability shines and resilience climbs, guiding your squad through uncertain times. Leadership evolves with a coaching frame, guiding with empathy, straight changing the game. We ask and listen with presence, no doubt. We lead with purpose, so hear me out. 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 We journey through growth, just picking up steam. From doubt to resilience, from the self to the team. With leadership's layers, each lesson unfolds. Authenticity shines where courage holds. Sparks of self-awareness, that's the leader's key. I'm gonna do my stuff with authenticity. Connections will thrive where inclusion gets tout. We all fam in this club, right? Hear me out. From storming and norming to performing in stride. Psychological safety keeps us tight and unified.
Feedback, intention, and purpose ignite. Leaders guide us with vision to the bright sunlight. Every voice matters, each presence profound. Leadership rhythm is a sacred sound. This is our anthem, it roars no doubt. Friends, this is our story, so hear me out. Hear me out.
Thank you for listening to the AVIT Amplifier. Join us again for next week's episode when we'll welcome a new guest who you'll want to hear from. We promise. Your host has been Ryan Gray. He's on the tweeters at Ryan_A_Gray, or find him on LinkedIn to connect. Please subscribe and give the show a rating and review wherever you get your podcasts. This show is brought to you by higheredav.com. The views expressed here are not necessarily those of our respective institutions, employers, or sponsors. Everyone hang in there, go easy, and we'll be back next week.